Well, that was indeed dynamite, and you kind of hinted earlier. Did you watch Collision? I saw a good deal
What?
of it.
Yeah, I kind of hinted. You
Me?
had told me that there was an angle between FTR and the House of Black that somewhat defied description, and maybe I should check that out. And as a result, I had to zip through some portion of the program to get there, and then by that point, I was like, "My God, how much worse can it get?" So I don't have detail on the whole thing, but I do have notes with detail on the angle.
The angle I thought you should see, because I always complain that FTR have these world-class all-time matches, but there's no great feud. Like, there's never great angles.
There's no rivalry. There's no personal issue between themselves and another team that would be identifiable, a la, fucking Midnight Rock and Roll or goddamn, the Andersons and fucking Weaver and Becker or whatever.
There are no feuds or rivalries that aren't based just around, we want to see who's the best. There has to be something else. Arn and Tully were fucking bastards, Like, they would do bad shit, and then they would dress nice. There was a reason to hate them. So FTR is always missing, I think, that. So when I saw that they were doing an angle, even though it was the House of Black, who I'm not a big fan of, I said, let's see what they do here. And I'll wait for whatever you want to say, whatever you want to say.
Let's get there, because first, if you want some type of clarification, ladies and gentlemen of the listening public, as to why that Collision is... It's aptly named because it's the same thing that the Titanic and the iceberg did to each other. This show has hit the wall and gone south. And listen to what they presented on 2 hours primetime national cable television. The tournament is ongoing there too. I don't know if it's the blue block or the gold blocker. Remember the blue blockers, the sunglasses? Did they work? Did you ever get any of those? The guy had a catchy rap tune about the blue blockers.
Who was that?
I don't know.
Which guy was that?
The guy on the commercial.
What commercial was that?
For the blue blockers,
How'd
the
the rap
sunglasses that blocked the blue. I can't remember it. But that was the highlight of the commercial they played for like fucking 6 months, every goddamn waking hour you were watching television. All right, well, that was apparently it was before your time. Or maybe you were still at a black and white television. You couldn't figure out what the fuss was all about.
Maybe.
Brody King versus Claudio Castagnoli in a cold match between a heel and is that group heels? I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Well, you say a cold match. It's a tournament match.
It's a cold match because there's no fucking issue, and it's another one of these matches that went 20 fucking minutes and with a finish as flat as a plate full of piss. They have their, and I love Claudio, and I wish that somebody would book him correctly. But they have their match, and then Brody King hits a sloppy pile driver and gets a 2 count, and then picked him up and clotheslined him and got a 3 count. So not only were we 20 minutes into the show, but the finish was flat as a plate full of piss and just buried fucking Claudio. Why just beat a fucking stud like that in the middle of the goddamn ring with no out, no bitch, no gripe, no fluke, no heel cheating? And also, after you've given him a pile driver, that didn't beat him, but a clothesline did. And it wasn't like that they said, oh, God, that was one of the shittier pile drivers that's ever been delivered, because it was. They didn't know that. That was the finish that obviously was called for, to kick out of that. And then it wasn't like, oh, shit, I can't beat you with that, brother. Get up. Oh, fuck.
I think the sloppy pile driver's a fine setup to a clothesline for a pin.
But only if he had done it on purpose, which he didn't. You can just tell he's one of these bend leg pile driver people. Remember Bobby Eaton and Ric Flair? Not that Brody King is ever going to be in that fucking company unless he's serving the fucking hors d'oeuvres. But they couldn't do a pile driver, but he does a bent leg fucking pile driver. And Claudio's head had already popped. Claudio may have said, fuck this fucking guy, and popped his own head out. Maybe. I don't fucking know. But anyway, that was that. Go ahead.
I don't have this in front of me, and I know you don't either, but I'd like to see it. What has been the shortest match in the tournament so far? Because it feels like every match is going at least 20 minutes.
I don't know. Some of them you have to time with a calendar. So I don't know what if there has been a short one. And did you? I skipped by, but I'll report here as a factual comment that Abaddon beat Kiera Hogan with some fucked up looking move where she throws her leg up over the girl's head and just drives her face into the ground.
Yeah, I watched this.
I don't even want to go any further on that. It took Andrade.
What the highlight of that was Julia Hart appearing, not being scared of the scary Abaddon, and then the lights go out and she disappears, and the drunk fans at ringside pointed to the
that's right. That's the one. I zipped by, but you had mentioned that to me off the. We do talk off the air every once in a while. Yeah, so they. But I mean, where do they expect? Where does anybody think that she's gone? Do they think she's really teleporting to another dimension? And you can see again. I think we mentioned this earlier in the program. You can see in the arena, they've got emergency exit lights and it can't be pitch black. My God. Can you imagine making an entire arena of 3,000 people pitch black in this day and age?
It's illegal. It's a fire hazard.
So, of course, they're pointing, she's under the ring, but you got to act like, just like you're standing there dumbfounded when somebody's music is playing and acting like they're not standing behind you. When the people are screaming, they're behind you.
What do you think fans think, though? That the lights go out and they hide under the ring, or the lights go out and they run to the back as fast as they can?
Well, it depends on how long the lights are out. Sometimes these lights are out so long you think they forgot to pay the bill. And then you figure, well, fuck, they're back at the hotel by now because they could get their shit together. Remember when they were changing positions on the entrance? You're like playing a game of fucking lights out, lights on, Twister. So nobody is convinced that they're really teleporting themselves around or that they're the apparitions of the House of Blech. But yeah, Julia Hart appeared and disappeared. Did I mention that it took Andrade 15 minutes to beat Daniel Garcia?
Daniel
Garcia.
Go fuck yourself, Daniel. No. Okay,
that's the wrong Daniel. And then they had, who are they? The Bears or the Boulders? Boulder Bronson and his brother Bear.
No, now they're
Bronson.
A different name. They're like the Iron Curtain.
Well, but
the Iron.
Iron Curtain.
The Iron Curtains. There are multiple curtains of iron.
They look more like the fucking Iron Freezers.
They're the Iron. What are they? The Iron Warriors.
But they still called them Bear Bronson Boulder or whatever the fuck. Those big fat hairy guys. They gave them a match with Taven and Bennett, and Taven and Bennett beat them. And I was again just thinking what an amazing addition to this lackluster tag team roster that Taven and Bennett could have been if they'd been brought in as a legitimate tag team with serious interests and given some wins instead of pushing Roddy around in a fucking wheelchair with a neck brace on or a flea collar or whatever he's wearing.
Instead of being a grown man walking around with a pet giraffe on TV like your Georgie Animal Steel or something.
And because Bennett is a hell of a worker, and Taven in this match could do all of the fucking diving over the top, plus he's a grown man.
Their problems in AEW are not in the ring. They're good in the ring. It's the way they're booked. It's the bad comedy. It's the childishness of the comedy. But they're good in the ring. But
so naturally, they're on the secondary show doing stupid shit with job guys and fucking pushing people around in wheelchairs and acting like idiots, carrying stuffed giraffes around. So then we get to the House of Black, which is Malachi and Buddy, our friend Buddy, against Matt Sydal and Christopher Daniels, who, to my knowledge, have they ever teamed up in this company together on television? I mean, they have known each other for years. They're both veterans, but
they had a big run in 2004 with Orangutan Pro Wrestling.
Oh, come on now. So that, again, cold match for the House of Black to get over, and they beat Chris Daniels. And then the music is playing, their music is playing, because they won. And the lights go out. And then FTR's music starts playing. And now they get spotlights and shit. And they enter. And Malachi Black starts talking. And I was trying to listen to what he was saying. I was trying to make notes on the point of what he might have been saying to them. And then I said, wait a minute, is he one of these guys that speaks different languages in his promo? But then I realized, no, the words are English. Did he start like saying something that he had prepared in his mind and he fucked it up and he started over again or something? I couldn't follow what the fuck he was trying to get out until finally he assumed that they were there to join the House of Black. Why would he assume that?
I had the same thought. Why? Where has this been established that there was an offer made?
And maybe it was on fucking Rampage. Who knows? And then he said the House of Black have been there for both of you. When? I mean, I know we haven't watched this.
When I hid that gun in the Everglades for you.
Hey, quit now. There's absolutely no proof of that whatsoever.
I helped him.
Well, unless there's somebody that can testify to it. But again, we haven't watched the program for the past couple of weeks, but we haven't heard of any of this interaction. But he didn't say any of it very clearly, did he? Did you notice that he was just...
First of all, what I noticed was his accent went away. I was like, man, he sounds like he has no accent whatsoever all of a sudden. Doesn't sound like the same whispering, spooky man. Like, all of a sudden, it all went away, and that threw me off. And then he was just talking gibberish, and again, I assume you're here to join the House of Black. We've seen this a lot, too. I assume you're here to join my bullshit faction. Like, that's happened multiple times.
Even though there's no reason for me to believe this.
But again, FTR, their career has been lacking great angles and great heated rivalries that aren't built around who's better in the ring.
Which is, unfortunately, because of who's been booking them for most of the time they've been a team. But at the same time, everybody else gets to do their own shit. Why are Dax and Kay? Why does Tony hate them? Why are they in the doghouse? Why does Dax lose every single match he ever has except the one against Cash? Why?
Well, some of this
do they go away for long periods of time?
Well, I think some of the stuff we do see on TV, you have to ask yourself how much of this is what they want to do, because they are doing it on Collision.
Well, I can see him calling the finishes a mile away and laying the matches out and calling the matches, but why would anybody in the wrestling business want to do any of the interviews and angles that they have ever done?
So they're still baby faces. That Midnight Express knockoff music hits, big pop, because people think of the Midnight Express. Big pop still.
Come on.
Big pop. They come out there, they're fired up, they get the fans fired up, and then they just stand in the ring like patsies.
Well, that's where I was going with this next, because whatever the fuck that Malachi Black dribbled out with his verbal effluvia out of his yapper, he then bent over and laid the microphone down in front of Dax and now your turn to respond.
I challenge you to a verbal duel.
Yeah, well, he wasn't throwing the gauntlet down. He was throwing the micro. No, he didn't throw it even. He said it gently and he stood up. Well, here, your answer. And Dax, bear in mind, Dax and Cash have been standing there listening to whatever the fuck it was he just said. Even though they've made this purposeful entrance and they just stood there and listened to this drivel. And then as Dax bends over to pick the microphone up, Buddy just fucking knee lifts him right in the fucking face. Boom, and down he goes and sells it. And they get in a fight with Cash, and they 2-on-1 him. And then Buddy grabs Dax in, I don't know, it looked just like a goddamn, here, I'm just going to fucking pinch your face. I'm pinching your face. And stand behind you with your arm at an awkward position, and now you're completely immobile, even though You're a grown man, an ex-multi-time world tag team champion. You're completely immobile for quite some time and helpless while Malachi hits that fucking kick that I don't know if he ever whips it, but there's a few that looks suspicious to me on the fucking stiff side. He hits his kick on Cash. And by the way, I wrote this is more awkward than it sounds. And then Buddy still has Dax, and Malachi Black gets the microphone and says, "No one is coming for you," about 3 times in a row, while Dax is immobile, being held down. And not even by a goddamn shoot hold by fucking John Jones or Conor McGregor, but by a fucking one-handed chin grip or whatever by Buddy.
He looked like he was in shock. What was that?
Yeah, he was realizing, oh my God, how are we ever going to fucking survive being in the middle of this shit pile? And then he hit Dax with the kick right in his fucking face. I think old Malachi had actually, I think it was Cash that he stuck his foot out under Cash and picked him up with his leg, like, bam, and then kicked him. And he just kicked Dax while he was on his knees. And they left them both laying there. And they've not even uttered a fucking word, FTR. And what are you going to say? Well, boy, we sure are suckers. We should have kept Tully Blanchard. He'd have told me not to bend over.
By the way, important to note that FTR are clearly the baby faces. While all this is happening, the fans start chanting House of Black.
Yes. Because they
don't look like idiots in this.
Tony has managed to turn his audience against almost every one of his baby faces and got him to cheer for almost every one of his heels. He's a fucking wizard. It's like, fuck that Bambi. Give that Hunter an extra fucking couple of buckshot.
So let me ask you this, just because it's preposterous to me, it's preposterous to you, obviously. To the people who don't understand it, to any of the fans saying, you guys don't get it. Now FTR get to get their revenge next time. There's a difference between needing to make a comeback and just looking like complete shit for the angle.
Yes, it's not just by rote, automatically, well, now the babyface gets his revenge and it will be, or comes back for revenge or whatever. You have to want to see someone get revenge. Someone has to deserve revenge. Someone can't be. In the old cowboy movies, for fuck's sake, when the fucking outlaws came and burned John Wayne's ranch and raped his wife and killed his horse, well, that was totally uncalled for, and he was minding his own business, and by God, we know John Wayne, even though the wife and the horse may not have been that tough, John's going to get even. And you were on his side because that was the right side of the morality play. But now they're portraying their baby faces as these dipshits that don't lock their doors and fucking have signal flares. Hey, outlaws, come and rob me and rape my wife because I'm out of town and I'm an idiot anyway and nobody likes me. And I'm an ineffectual prick. And then the outlaws come and they look cool because they got the wife and they burned the fucking ranch and they rode off with the horse. And what's that fucking dick going to do about it, John Wayne? Does that make any sense?
There are no strong baby faces.
There are a bunch of people with the faces of babies, but nobody that looks like that you want to admire them and see them get even for potential wrongdoing that has been done to them.
Even if the wrestlers don't want to go to the bar, and plenty do, but even if some of the wrestlers don't want to go to the bar, the fans at home want to imagine that they can go to the bar and have a drink with their favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
Not go play video games. There are some fans, I guess, who want to go sit in their underwear and play video games with them, but I don't know why I said sit in their underwear, but I guess there are just some crazy fans out there is what I'm saying. But then there are other people who, the way they see a great ball player or something.
But I mean, you don't even have to want to be a wrestler or a great ball player. What if you're watching a movie? How many people want the fucking hero of the movie to be a dipshit that gets fooled and conned and taken advantage of all the time and then gets beaten up when he tries to do something about it? And ultimately, in some cases in Tony's programs, Doesn't get even in the end. Just moves on to let somebody else wipe their feet on him.
And this isn't even the first time we've seen the whole no one's coming to save you thing. Didn't that happen to MJF? I mean, that's one of the things that sets up Samoa Joe.
Well, yeah, but why is FTR used to have friends, didn't they? They were baby faces. They dealt with, besides Punk. Is that okay? Well, yeah, Punk's gone. He was your only friend. What the fuck? Why would...
But they were the baby faces, and they were...
And it was 2-on-2, by the way. Yeah. In a group with 3 people in it, the only 2 of them were there, and they beat the shit out of FTR, completely ungoddamn contested, 2 against 2. So the odds were even.
So again, I told you I thought you should see this, because when I saw this, I couldn't believe... It just didn't make any sense, and I couldn't believe it got on the air, because I couldn't believe that some of the people involved wouldn't have said, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? We're not doing this.
I don't think that anybody, wants to get the heat of saying, why would we do something like this on the show that they know that pretty much now that nobody's going to fucking watch. But anyway, there was more of it. There was just a bit more. Did you check out the next match, Brian, after that little angle between Viking O and Pip Sabian?
A little bit of it, because Suzanne was in the area, so I yelled at her that her favorite wrestler was on, so she came in.
Well, it looked like, and by the way, Google this one, kids. It'll be hilarious. It looked like Fuzzy Cupid versus Sky Low Low in color on national television.
Well, Pip Sabian's not that short.
Good Lord. Remember, Zack Saber's one, it looks like a Q-tip.
Yeah.
I think Pip Sabian, what's shorter than a Q-tip? Looks like the tip of a douche nozzle. But nevertheless, did you see the finish?
Yeah, he fucking landed. If Kip Sabian didn't break a rib, he's lucky. He just landed right on him. He did I'll let you describe it. Go.
Well, the announcers termed it a 630 flip. I can't imagine that he intended to do this. Was it supposed to be, what's the most revolutions that have ever been done on one of these things? A 720? What would it have been if he'd have, instead of landing on poor Pip Sabian, who now will be called Pancake Sabian, instead of landing on him with his back, with Viking O's back first onto Pip's chest, full force off the top rope after flipping whatever number of times, 630 fucking degrees of times. What would he had to have been trying for a splash. Nobody would have, if you'd have told Pip Sabian, look, you lay there and I'm going to come off the top like a cannonball type of thing, but I'm going to do a 360 and then I'm going to turn over again and land with my shoulders and back directly on your chest and ribs with all of my weight at that velocity. How the fuck is Pip Sabian going to be? Oh, okay, brother. I'll keep my arms in. What?
Maybe it's like the Derby dive, where it looks incredible. And if you talk to anyone who's ever taken one, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even feel it. He's so light, you just push him off. Maybe Viking O, he's a smaller guy. Maybe.
I'm sorry. I thought I saw lightning shoot out the head of Pip Sabian's dick and shit out of his asshole. When the slow-mo that down and tell me that that's not a motherfucker that had gone, and fucking turns over. And
I agree with how it looked. I'm trying to justify what the sales pitch could be. Take this move, I weigh 140 pounds. You won't feel a thing.
Nobody could be that stupid.
Suzanne was here for the end. I missed the early part of the match. She came in for the middle of the match, and I said, let's see what he does. And even she winced when he landed right on him. I was like, ooh.
Well, okay, now I said, could he have been trying to do a splash and he fucked up? Here's another thing. Could it have supposed to have been a senton where his ass was going to land over past Pip and take the brunt off of this, and instead he was off on that, and he just crushed him with his goddamn entire body weight balled up.
He was going pretty fast to turn that into a senton where he was going to land on his own ass.
Well, you're right about that, but he had to get over. I don't mean that way. I mean he had to get over 2 revolutions, didn't he, or at least 1.5? So you got to get up a little fucking steam coming off the top on that one. And Pip there being big around as my fucking thumb and mostly bone and cartilage, it could have crushed his sternum, broken his ribs. That'll fuck your lower back up too, just a shock like that while you're laying flat. So for a TV match, that's what I'm saying. There's so much that can go wrong with this bullshit that these fucking idiots want to do, where they do trapeze acts off the top rope and multiple revolutions and come down with knees and elbows or their body weight on. It's still, the jury may still be out on how Danielson got a broken orbital socket, but it's a good bet that some hard piece of an opponent landed on his face or drove his face into the fucking hard floor. And they just do this for fucking because that's the only thing that Viking O is good for. And that's the only thing he can. And him and fucking Commander and Der Commissar and Herr General and Gravity and Motion and
I don't think that's fair. I think Viking O is much better than Commander, whose only ability seems to be to take as much time as possible to catch his breath, get his balance, and run across the ropes to jump to the floor.
Oh, well, I thought Viking O was the one that did the tightrope walk. But it's the other guy. Well, that's because, you know why? I don't know that. Because everybody's wearing a goddamn mask at the same time of fucking Starburst Fruit Chew fucking outfits.
Well, except Viking O.
No, he's wearing the fucking sleeve on one side and a goddamn loincloth on the other side. I don't know what the fuck. The point is, these guys, Jesus Christ. Why take a chance on letting one of these guys cave your fucking face in when you're already doing a job for them? And, all right. And then, speaking of caving people's face in, Danielson had Eddie Kingston in another tournament match, and I believe I mentioned earlier he's wearing the oddest eye patch I've ever seen. It not only in there's no support or protection, like they said, oh, he might be going to wear one of the protective masks, you know, to come back and wrestle early. It's just black cloth, but it looks odd and gets frazzled as the match goes on, and it looks like he's just wearing some stripper's black panties wrapped around his fucking head. And he won 9 seconds before my DVR froze, so they at least almost managed, or just barely managed their time on Saturday night. Yeah.
And I believe Danielson got 3 points.
Yes, he got 3 points and taken off his IQ.
Who do you think's going to have the most points?
I don't care. It's, well, who's in the tournament?
Will they count? Like, if someone's in the tournament next year and the year after, do you get the claim like I have the most points in AEW history?
Probably, but I'm saying who's in the tournament that Tony is most fond of, that was a fan of the G1 tournament in specific and Japanese wrestling in general, that's always wanted to do it but never got to, and son of a gun, he's come back early from a broken face to be involved in it for the love of the game and the support of the company. If Danielson doesn't win this, doesn't he look like a complete fucking idiot?
I actually think the person who should win this, the person it would help the most, and the person who right now, it's not he could use it, but it's the right time, I would go with Swerve.
Well, that might be, but that would be looking to the future instead of the guy that's retiring next year. But Tony is going to want to reward Bryan Danielson for his, you know, efforts and years of service by giving him this present, because that's what friends do for each other.
Well, we will see what happens right now. Just for the record, in the Gold League, Jon Moxley and Swerve Strickland both have 6 points, so they are the leaders in the Gold League. And in the Blue League, Brody King has 6 points, so he's currently leading the Blue Division.
But Bryan Danielson
has 3 points.
Has 3 points because he's only had one match so far.
In the Blue League, Bryan Danielson has 3 points, also with 3 points. Andrade El Idolo and Claudio Castagnoli rounding out the leaderboard, or I guess the loser board. They have no points here. Daniel Garcia and Eddie Kingston, both with 0 points, have lost 2 matches. And in the Gold League, Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland with 6 points. Roosh and Jay White, both with 3 points. And with 0 points, Team Cornette, Mark Briscoe, and Jay Lethal.
Oh, thanks very much. But, that's the show there, folks, that they presented on Saturday night. And that's the way that the angle, again, another angle involving FTR, the best in-ring tag team in wrestling, but unfortunately ill-served outside of it. That's the way their latest angle was butchered. And, Brian, I'll tell you what, I hate to see amateur bookers butchering angles. But you know what I love to see?
I'm afraid to ask. Butchers, bakers, dozen? What do you love to see?
And candlestick makers. I love to see professional butchers that know their stuff. Butchering the Omaha steaks for the folks at Christmas time, at the holidays. The butcher's cut filet mignons from Omaha Steaks are
very good.
If they talk about butcher's cut, you can actually cut them with a fork. But not when they're raw. You got to do the professional deal first.
I only butcher the transitions.
Well, there you go. But at least you're a professional at that. Mouth-watering burgers, gourmet jumbo franks. We've talked about how big and plump and juicy the franks are. They're positively John Holmes-like. I mentioned that last week.
The Frank Morella franks.
The Frank Morella franks, and with Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless, much like with the other people we just mentioned. But right now, because it's the holidays, this offer's not going to last long. They're going to run out of cows, folks, out there in Omaha. As a matter of fact, right now, I understand they've sent all the way to Lincoln for extra cattle to come in for this sale that they've got going on right now at omahasteaks.com. 50% off site-wide. So you can stock up and fill up the freezer for the holidays and feed the whole family. You can have the butcher's cut filet mignons. You can feed your kids the mouth-watering burgers, and you can shove one of the jumbo franks down your wife's neck. The possibilities are endless. And not only is it 50% off site-wide, now a minimum order may be required. You can't just say, give me one hoof and a horn.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
But at these prices, it's worth it. But if you take advantage of the 50% off site-wide sale going on now at omahasteaks.com and use the promo code JCE at checkout, you're going to get an extra $30 off your order. $30 on top of... So let's say, for purposes of examination, that you spent $200. Well, then you're really spending $100. You're getting $30. You're getting $200 worth of meat for like $70. You ought to be arrested for theft. You're stealing from Omaha Steaks.
Are you doing your math right?
Well, I don't know. Did I?
You ought to be arrested for math, but Omaha Steaks is delicious.
Wait a minute. 200 down to 100 and then 70 was 30 off.
Oh, is that what you said it was? Then that is indeed what it is. Good job, Jim.
Oh, God damn it. Don't try to impugn my mathematicism. I'm a fanaticism at the mathematicism. Folks, 5 generations of family-owned expertise out at Omaha Steak. It started with General Grover Omaha 5 generations ago, and all the little Omahas have come in and taken over the goddamn family business, but it means uncompromising quality you can trust, or old Grover will come back and haunt them. Every steak, every entree, flash frozen, vacuum sealed, shipped to you in a wonderful cooling container with the dry ice and everything. It's harder than Chinese arithmetic when it gets to you. And it's backed by their unconditional 100% money back guarantee. That means you send it back no matter what condition it's in. I guess if you eat half of it.
Well, yeah, I think there have to be some limitations on that. You can't chew it up and send it back. It has to be pre-chewed, and You can have a taste to know. I don't know why you would send. You're not going to send it back. It's delicious.
How would you pre-chew the food? Nobody, you don't know whether you like the food until you post-chew. And then, well, folks, here's the thing. You chew it up, spit it back, and send it back to them.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying not to do with bad grammar.
It's 100% money-back guarantee. So don't let the most wonderful time of the year be the most stressful. Be a gifting expert for yourself, for that person in your family that you love or you want to feed, for that young lady down the street. Give her a little meat for the holidays. Skip the guesswork. OmahaSteaks.com. 50% off site-wide. Use the promo code JCE at checkout for an extra $30 off. Promo code JCE, OmahaSteaks.com. That's the meat of the matter, Brian.
Yes, it is indeed. The meat of the matter with Omaha Steaks.
You love the filet mignons.
I like filet mignon, but I have to say, they have the best, you call them Franks, the best hot dogs out there.
Well, they call them Franks here on the copy. Not that I sometimes follow the copy, but
I like that. It's old school, Frankfurter, but they have fantastic hot
it's
dogs.
A footer, all right. It looks like somebody's fucking foot. Possibly a little skinnier than a foot, but as long as one.
It looks like a delectable hot dog, not like a foot.
Well, I mean, it's this similar in length. Anybody would be pleasured or pleased with a hot dog of this length.
That's right. Once again, put your foot on the gas and go to Omaha Steaks website. What's that promo code one more time, Jim?
OmahaSteaks.com, promo code JCE, if you're asking. Well, what in the world? I'm asking you what you're doing this week, you and the various programs over at the Arcadian Vanguard Network.
Another fine week of programming on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all the shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes. Big news this week on the wrestling news. For the first time in 460 days, Mike Sempervive was sick. And Lou Kippelman filled in, and you can hear Lou and Mike and all the wrestling news every single day for free. Get your wrestling news, all the news, and none of the opinion from thewrestlingnews.com directly, or look for Arcadian Vanguard's The Wrestling News wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Also, want to
do you think that Kippelman infected him with something on purpose to get that opportunity? Sort of like the stand-in suddenly going on for the Star.
I don't even know why.
That's a pretty good record that Solomon had going, or I'm sorry, not Solomon, but Sempervive.
Or Sempervive.
My other S fellow, the Sempervive had
on the wrestling.
Well, it was Solomon's choice. But Sempervive had going. He had a good record going, and he wasn't going to come to. It was like Walter Cronkite. He was just ever present. He was there, and Kippelman, bubbling under with jealousy, blind with rage, green with the green-eyed monster.
Oh, come on, that's ridiculous.
Secretly, somehow, possibly sent something in an envelope. Did Sempervive receive any white powder in an unmarked envelope lately?
Actually, no one's heard from him in about a week.
Well, okay, so Kippelman's serious about taking this thing over.
Well, here no takeover, but the actual news in reality. Once again, thewrestlingnews.com. Also want to make mention of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. They recently had a 2-part look at World Class Championship Wrestling Star Wars Thanksgiving Turkey Day Spectacular Star Wars 1983. Hear all about that. A lot of people have the Von Erichs on their mind. Hear Von Erich talk at McAdamPod.com or wherever you find your favorite podcast. I don't know why that made you laugh. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, The Mothership. Go through the archive today at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast, The Mothership.
That mothership is starting to run through me like X-Lax through a widow woman.